Welcome to the Fishing Daily podcast with me, Oliver McBride. Today I am speaking to Peter Ronelöv Olsson of the Swedish Fishermen's Producers Organization. Hi Peter, thank you for joining us on the Fishing Daily podcast.
Hello, and thank you for having me.
Peter, you recently wrote a letter to the EU Commission about the future of, the fishing industry for the Swedish and the Baltic. What was the reason why you did that?
The reason was I wrote that letter a little bit in anger, but it's true anyway, because in the Baltic we have a situation where the guys who are fishing demersal in the Baltic, they are fishing for cod. They have one species. They have whiting, they have some haddock and other species, but the main species they have to fish is cod. And the environmental situation went so bad in the Baltic and is so bad in the Baltic that cod just disappeared more and more. It wasn't growing, and the oxygen levels in the Baltic are so low, so they cannot spawn, and they are avoiding their old spawning grounds. So, and we have a lot of seals and cormorants, and they are eating so much more than we are fishing. And so the situation gets worse and worse, and nobody did anything about the situation, but they blamed the fishermen. And in the end, now in this autumn, they stopped all the fishing of cod in the Baltic. They just stopped it. And there is no plan. They stopped it 2 years ago in the east part, but now in the west it stopped too. So all the cod fishery in the Baltic has stopped. And it was so easy for EU just to stop it without any plans for the fishermen, without anything to help them whatsoever. If you have permission to fish cod in the Baltic, as all the demersal boats really have, you just kill them. There is nothing for them, nothing whatsoever. They have nothing. They cannot sell their boats, they cannot leave the boats, it's bankruptcy for them. And the politicians just did it with a stroke of a pen, and they have nothing to give, nothing to help them whatsoever. And under such circumstances, with the government doing like that, it's so easy to do that in other places too. So I wrote the letter with that in mind, and I told them that if you don't take care of the fishermen, if you continue this path you're on with starting with CO2 tax, with CCTV and all the windmills, then we have the same problem soon. We have the same problems in the North Sea too, and in Skagerrak and Kattegat, wherever. But you have to be careful about what you have. It's food production. Are you going to buy everything from someone else? Or in the end, are there going to be anywhere you can buy fish?
Peter, what size is the Swedish fishing fleet? How many boats would be involved in it?
In RPO, we have 250 boats, and I think there is 1,000 boats in Sweden. But a lot of them are very, very small. We have, I think there is 30 bigger pelagic boats. They are not in RPO. They are fishing in the Baltic, in North Sea, in Atlantic, wherever, up in Norway. But the demersal fleet, it was going down in the Baltic. We might have 20 trawlers and maybe 50, 60 netters in the Baltic. Those were the guys who were killed this time.
And how many would be sort of like employed through your PO? How many like workers and There must be knock-on effects. It's not just the boats that's been put out. You know, there's other people in communities being affected as well.
For us, it's something between say 600 guys that are members in APIO. The last decision they took in Luxembourg, that was 100 guys who lost their jobs. 100 guys lost their job over that decision, and it was so easy for them. And then they don't have any plans, no help whatsoever, just get out.
And this is, as you said, this is a big loss. There's no sort of comeback for the fleet. Is there any compensation being given for this?
No, none whatsoever. No compensation. And the sad thing is they don't do anything about the environment. It's keep on going. And we could save the Baltic, and the Baltic is fantastic. There was a huge cod fishery back in the 80s, 90s. One of the world's biggest cod stocks were in the Baltic because the environmental were better and they could be there. But if there's no oxygen, there is no fish. It's so easy.
What's the cause of the low oxygen? Is it global warming? Is it anything?
No, not global warming. It's mostly agriculture around the sea, and it's too many people, and you don't take care of the waste from all the people, and you put everything in the sea, and in the end there is no oxygen. The sea cannot take anymore. So you have to do big expensive things to save the Baltic, but it's savable. In Chesapeake Bay they had the same situation. There's a brackish water there too, and they saved it, but it's so much easier and cheaper to blame it on the fishermen. So we stand with the blame about Baltic, that there is no oxygen in Baltic. It's our fault. We are to blame.
So any of these precautions that they're saying that they're taking isn't going to improve the situation. That's kind of the message.
In the east, we have been stopped for almost 2 years, and the situation haven't been changed. There is no cod fishing in the east part, and the situation is exactly the same. And of course it is. It's a lack of oxygen.
And I was also reading as well that there's a huge problem with seals and cormorants.
Yeah.
The liver fluke from the seals seems to be having a huge effect as well on the cod stocks.
Absolutely. The cod have almost no liver because it's eaten by worms. And of course we must reduce the seals. We never said take them away, or we never say that every cowboy kill them. We said hire hunters and do a reasonable hunting and have the levels to be reasonable. But nobody listens. There is some hunting, it's nothing. Gray seals are reproduce 10% every year. It's maximum. The science is stunned by the figures. 10% every year they reproduce. So it's being more and more seals, and nobody does anything about it. And that's the way it is.
Well, in that case, it's unsustainable and it's probably inhuman to have so many seals in an area where they can't be supported by the fish.
No.
So eventually something will happen there where you'll end up having seals will start starving. There'll be more problems in that area if they don't resolve situations like that early. Yeah,
today they go in coastal areas and eat salmon and all the freshwater fish and go in closer to the coast, eat more herring. The herring situation in the Baltic is, in south there's less and less herring, and in the north there's more herring, but the herring is very small in north. Up in Botnia Bay, there is normally a lot of herring, big herring, but the herring getting smaller and smaller. And again, now it's first it was the cod fleet, now it's the big pelagic boats. They to blame. Of course, it isn't them. It is the environmental. It's a huge problem, but as long as you can have fishermen to blame, so when you don't have a cod fleet, you point your finger at the bigger pelagic boats and it's them to blame. So the big debate in Sweden is to throw out bigger pelagic boats out of the Baltic. Doesn't help, won't help anything, of course, but it's so nice to have someone to blame.
And I suppose there's also the drive towards what's happening everywhere else as well. They're looking to build more wind farms and offshore energy.
Yeah.
Is that going to be another big problem for the fleet?
Yeah, absolutely a huge problem, because we had a meeting this morning with a Norwegian wind farm company, and they are putting their wind farms in Swedish water because it's much easier. We don't have the same restrictions and so on as Norway have. And we see in the Baltic, and especially on the west coast, there is wind farms everywhere. Everyone try to have their areas either to put up farms or sell as a permitted area. So it's everywhere. If everyone has their right to put up the wind farm, and the government don't care about fishing, not in Sweden. And we are gone. Sweden, with the longest coast in the EU, we're going to lose our professional fishermen first. We're going to go without any professional fishermen if this continues. So for us, it's a big, huge threat. But even other EU countries have the same problem, and the UK and whatever, because if everyone should drive Teslas, then we need a lot of power, and doesn't seem like nuclear power is so popular anymore. It's wind farm industry. That's the solution to everything. And if you put them up in every fishing ground, then you don't have any more fishing.
And yeah, and this is also another part of the whole green movement, is that the fact that fuel costs are rising all the time, and it's making it more difficult for vessels to be able to afford to make fishing trips. This will be something that your members will be looking at as well in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you have this fuel prices and then you want to put another CO2 tax on top of that, yeah, as I wrote in the letter, the risk is that you don't have any fishing industry left. But I don't know if you can make the politicians listen. Everything is so green these days that we kill ourselves with green arguments.
And what's the situation like for young people coming into the industry? Is there a lot of young people coming in? Are they interested in fishing, or is it like a lot of areas now, a lot of other countries, where we're finding that because of all the problems and everything else that's been created around fishing, that we're not going to attract the right number of young people in who's going to take over and take the industry into the future?
Absolutely. And that's a huge problem. I think the average age of our fishermen in Sweden are close to 60 years. And if you want to go into fishery, when I started because we have a history in my family. Everyone has been fishermen, but the key to start fishing was that they made money. I want to do this work, I can do this work, and I can make a lot of money on it. Today is just some pelagic who makes money. The demersal fleet is not making that much money that they should do. And on top of that, CCTV, and you will be monitored every working hour when you're on the boat. On top of that, I don't think it's interesting for any younger guys to start fishing, or gals or whatever. They don't want to start fishing. Who wants to work when you're monitored with CCTV and you don't make any money? Nobody wants.
And do you think, is there a solution in order to improve things in these areas?
A different mindset of the politicians, a different way of thinking, a different way to understand. If you want any food productions from your oceans, of course we will do it sustainable. Of course we must think long term when we are fishing. But if you want to have a food production, you must be careful about the resource you have. You have to be careful about the people you have doing their job. You must have a totally different mindset. You cannot always go around listen to the NGOs and who's telling the stories about fishermen who do this and that, and they are horrible, and it's food production. It's never going to be 100% discardless. There is no food production anywhere in the world that are 100% discardless, has no byproduct, whatever. But we should do it absolutely as clean, as right as possible. And I think the European fleet are doing that. They have an aim to do this as right as possible. And we need to feed the population of Europe. Are we going to eat farmed salmon from Norway, or everyone? No, I don't think so. I think there is a value and there is a possibility to fish sustainable, to fish for shellfish and for groundfish, for cod, whatever. You can do it. You can have a industry that are working, but as the mind setting is of the politicians today, we're not going to have it. In 10 years' time, we are gone.
And that's seems to be a reality for a lot of sort of coastal fisheries around Europe. They're being forced out into the void. There's no other word for it. There's no young people coming in. There's no backing from the EU.
And the funny thing is that when you listen to politicians, especially here in Sweden, they always say, oh, we have to take care of the coastal fleet. They are so small and they are so cute and they are so good. And the first one they kill is the coastal fleet.
That's the reality of it, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So is there any action you think that the Swedish Fishermen's PO and your members can take in order to get the Swedish government to back you?
Yeah, there is one thing we can do, and we are planning on it, and we need to be a little more French. Block some harbor. Tell the politicians, hey, we are here. Look what we have. Look what we can do. Start cooperate with us, work with us, talk to us, and start ending this path you're on, because you are killing us. So block some harbor. I think you can write not far away in time that we have blocked Gothenburg Harbor. I think you can write on it soon.
And we're looking at this, that there's a lot of small coastal fleets, and even in other countries, sort of larger boats and everything else. Do you think that there needs to be a more organized body for fishermen in Europe that will push this message forward?
Absolutely. 6-7 years ago, when I stopped fishing and started this work as a chairman for the PO, my plan was that, and what I saw, and I thought that, I thought that would be an easy trip to try to get a better organized fishing industry in Europe. And the beekeepers, they are much better organized than we are. But in Europe, fishing industry is so poorly organized. So who do you send from every country? Who do you send to Brussels to talk about your fisheries? Is it former fishermen, or is it something else? Or are they doing a good job? That's questions that every fisherman should put in mind. Who represents you? If it's in London or wherever, in Brussels or wherever, who do you send? And what do they say? So, and how do they organize? Look at the organizations of fishermen in Europe. It's disaster. Nothing else but a disaster. We cannot organize ourselves. We cannot be proper organized to have a voice in Brussels, Belfast, London, wherever. Because who do we send? Do they know anything about fishery? Yeah, no. I've seen a lot on these years, but so I left EAPO now, and because it didn't help anything you said or tried to do, or Europesh we left earlier, but I don't know. There is no way to organize fisheries at the moment. We need to do something radical. We need to do something else, because, as I said, beekeepers have no enemies anywhere. They are better organized than fishing industry are. So think about that.
That's a stark reality. Peter, thank you very much for your time today. We hope sometime to hear from you soon and learn more about what's happening with your members, and would like to have you back on again if you would like.
Yeah, absolutely. Fun doing this, and all the best.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.